communications model, then it becomes a little more problematic in figuring out how or if it fits in. So with utilities, I would argue that where the smart grid operationally benefits the utility, that's something that the utilities could embrace, and that's what you hear them talking about when they talk about the smart grid. So something that can lead to a more efficient system, getting rid of all of the people who drive by in trucks and read meters, being able to turn off and turn on electric power meters, being able to better control voltage and reduce line loss. Those are all things that fit within the efficiency, because the utilities can earn on that by creating a more efficient model in between rate cases. They get to keep all of that resources. So there's a fairly powerful incentive for those types of innovations. I think that other innovations, like the ability to do better demand response, so to try to create more of a flat load using the demand response technologies, that's a little more problematic. They can still see, how this can increase the efficiency of the system, and they can earn on it, but then they've got to weigh the investments for the demand response technologies versus the earnings they could make on investing in generation and wires and things like that. And then finally, whether it's meters or substations or information systems, the utilities can earn on those investments. So those are ways that it fits into the model. I think where things become much more and it really just becomes, for a regulator, just a simple cost-benefit analysis. If you can do this cheaper, do these things cheaper than what we're doing now, it's relatively easy to justify. Where things are problematic is to the extent that this technology really this cluster of technologies, or this, I don't even know how to totally describe the smart grid, but where it has more disruptive elements and where it has the potential to totally upend the utility model is problematic for utilities. One is, and this isn't really disruptive, is the technologies themselves may not work right away because they're new, and utilities don't want to get dinged for putting something in the ground that doesn't work. They tend to be judged on whether the piece of equipment is used and useful. If it doesn't work, then it's not used and useful, and somebody can come in and say, hey, we don't want you doing that. Second, and I think is it becomes more problematic, particularly in states where they do not have decoupling, like here in Colorado, is the idea that smart grid can actually lead to less electrons being sold, and as you can see, that can have a very big influence on utility earnings, even with relatively marginal increases or decreases. And I think the third and most problematic for a utility to even think about, and I don't want to, is the idea that these technologies will ultimately empower end users in a way that can make end users basically mini marketers of electricity, and and I think can throw into doubt the investments that have been made over the last 40 years in the existing system. So that's how I look at the utilities. The regulators, though, we probably look at it from a very similar perspective with a few twists in it. But first, I think it's important to note that if utilities don't have very much experience in these kind of technologies, regulators have even less. There is no one on the Colorado Public Utilities Commission staff who has any real expertise in smart grid. We have transmission people. We even now have renewable people. We have some demand-side management people. But we don't have people who think how the system can work as one, or even how you could take pieces off of the system and give them their own identity. So a lot of this is very far outside of a regulator's comfort zone. And when you start to think of it as a regulator, you start to think of, you ultimately lead you to the position, well, actually, if the promise of the smart grid could be fulfilled, then what does that mean for cost of service regulation, what is the role of regulators, all of these things that can have kind of a very existential feel to it, and we don't want to go there, so we don't. But when you get past that, the regulators tend to take a very short-term, some would say pragmatic approach is, is this something ratepayers should pay for it? So is there a straight benefit that can be quantified today that shows how that this is the lowest cost way to do X, Y, and Z? And the lowest cost way for the entire system. Third is, and this is an issue that is coming up right now with us, what, if any, protections should there be for the ratepayers? What kind of protections in terms of what happens to their information, or how much access do they have it or other parties have to their information? Also, if it's something that's being rate-paced, should ratepayers be able to benefit from any of the IT innovations that come out of this? I think these are all, in some ways, problematic. And then the thing that we're struggling with at the Colorado Commission is, is this something that utilities should even be doing? Or should we be trying to essentially kind of deregulate the meter, so to speak, to see if there are end-use applications that may not make sense from a cost perspective basis, but maybe there are other players who can come in and, try to let 1,000 flowers bloom there. And as part of that, what we're dealing with is this idea of where is the edge of the system. So that's from a regulator's perspective. What I wanted to just finish up on is what is the Commission doing about this, and what is our role, and how does the Colorado Commission come in? And I think, when Governor Ritter appointed us all to the Commission, it was in the expectation that we would be looking at really what the new energy future looked like, and that we would be kind of implementing the policies that the General Assembly and the Governor promoted around renewable, distributed generation, transmission, energy efficiency, and smart grid. So as commissioners, we take this issue very, very seriously, but we're still working within this paradigm. I like to tell people that any state public utilities commission, and to some degree even the FERC, has a house bias in favor of the utilities, because statutorily we're supposed to protect their monopolies, and statutorily we're supposed to make sure that they earn a return so that they can attract more capital to be able to do more investment. And just that one paradigm makes it, I think does not create a level playing field here. So, but the governor promoted these policies that I think have been very, very successful, and have appointed people like Tom Plan at the governor's energy office, like the current commissioners, like Jim Martin at the Department of Health and the Environment, who believe that we're not going to be doing things like we're doing today in the future. We've got to change how we're doing it. Specifically, what the commission is doing is we have opened what we've called a smart grid investigatory docket.